It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
Six the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It is a Monday, and I'm glad you're here. And, rinse and repeat like I usually say.
Today's show is sponsored by ice. It's water, but in a solid state. Caution. It may fall from the sky.
And there's a chance that some of that might fall from the sky later this week, giving some relief to our fires, but I'll get into that a little bit later.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilet, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave.
A little bit of a surprise. I didn't even realize this. I've been kind of busy, so I haven't been paying attention. Today is a holiday, in case you didn't know that. It's Columbus Day. Now, when I looked at that this morning, of course, some news organizations had to call it Indigenous Peoples Day. Oh, some of you might know it as Columbus Day, but it's National Indigenous Peoples Day. Yes, okay. And then they once again have to start the nonsense all over again. Well, Columbus actually didn't discover America. And it's okay. So real quick, I want to sort through all of that. Oh, and I went digging around a little bit just before I came on the air. Came across a little kiddie song that is supposed to help kids understand.
In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. It was a courageous thing to do, but someone was already here.
There's the key.
In 1492,
See, what they're going to get into here is, well, did he really discover it if somebody was already there? We're going to deal with that.
The Inuit and Cherokee, the Aztec and Menominee, Onondaga and the Cree. Columbus sailed across the sea, but someone was already here. So tell me who discovered what? He thought he was in a different spot. Columbus was lost, the Caribs were not. They were already here. So tell me who discovered what? He thought he was in a different spot. Columbus was lost, the Caribs were not. They were already here. The Inuit.
Okay, so you get the idea with the song. All right. And it does go on for quite a bit. I'd edit it down a little bit just for time's sake there. But all right, let's go ahead and settle this. We did get taught, and I did go back to some lessons that were taught during even the 1950s and 60s, cartoons that were made for kids. And they did get a lot wrong. One of them that I watched said that American Indians lived in teepees. No, most did not, actually. Most had homes, even log homes and stone homes, and they had villages and roads, and even had a form of currency in many cases, wampum. That's the Northern American Indians. Southern American Indians, well, they had whole cities and so on. So there's a lot going on over here. But what they didn't know is, they didn't, and this was even taught to kids way back then, because again, I found some lessons from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they did teach kids that, we just didn't know about each other. There had been trips by peoples before Columbus. The Vikings were here. There was even, there was a book I read, 1421, I think it was, but it was a very good book about how the Chinese had sent out an expedition to go around the world, and they ran into the West Coast, essentially. And went all up and down the West Coast of North and South America. But by the time they got home, they actually circumnavigated the entire globe. By the time they got home, the political situation in China had changed, and most everything that they had discovered along the way was destroyed for political reasons, typical politicians, right? Well, there was a new ruler in charge and all that. So, yeah, there have been times when peoples from other parts of the world had discovered North and South America, but for the most part, That information had been lost for various reasons. And so when Columbus took off, for the most part, it had pretty much been forgotten that there were any other continents between Asia and Europe. And so that's what Columbus was going to find out. How do you get over there? It's round. How do we get over there? And that's what he set out to do. So did he discover America? Well, in the sense that that information had pretty much been lost, and we didn't know that each side didn't know that the other side was here. So there you go. Was a discovery made? Sure. Even after Columbus discovered America for the Europeans, it was a while before people started coming here. Now, I think because the stories that I have here, in fact, let me go through a couple of them here. What is Indigenous Peoples Day? And this is from USA Today. And what to know about push to eliminate Columbus Day. Again, that's a USA Today article. Monday is becoming increasingly known as Indigenous Peoples Day. Well, maybe to them, but not to the rest of us. A commemorative Native American History and Culture Day. While the second Monday in October has historically been celebrated as Columbus Day and is still federally recognized as such, many have pushed for moving away from the holiday to acknowledge, here we go, the atrocities Columbus committed against people living in the Americas that were there long before his arrival. All right, so here's where I want to set the record, and I've got another one from CNN on the same idea. Set the record straight, and I am not excusing anybody's behavior. But I want to be real about this. When you take a look at what the peoples of North America were doing to each other before the white man showed up, there were a lot of atrocities. The idea that they were at one with nature and living at peace and so on is garbage. They were definitely not at one with nature, and there were a lot of atrocities against each other. And when you take a look at what's happening in South America, same thing. It was horrible. Go take a look at the atrocities they were committed against each other before the white people ever showed up. So when the white man finally did show up, they brought the Europeans committed the same atrocities against each other over in Europe. So when the Europeans showed up to the lands of North and South America, everybody started committing atrocities against each other. I mean, it's just the way human beings are, I'm sad to say. So finally what happened is the European tribe, they were the tribe that beat all of the tribes in North and South America. That's basically it. But who was better, who was worse? I don't think you can find that. Both did horrible things to each other. Both kept slaves. I mean, I don't know. Mass murder, genocide. From CNN, on the second Monday of October, Americans will be celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day, also known as Columbus Day. Indigenous Peoples Day recognizes the contribution and legacy of those who lived here before Christopher Columbus erroneously claimed to have discovered America. You see how they do that there? No, he didn't erroneously that's the part that gets me. He erroneously claimed that. No, he did discover it for Europeans who didn't know it was here. Okay. I mean, the people who were living here already knew that they were here, of course. No one's saying they didn't. But the people over in Europe didn't know that it was here. And the tribes of North and South America didn't know about Europe. And so Columbus is the one who came back and said, hey, guess what I just found over there? So it's not erroneous at all. But once again, there's your opportunity to distort history again, which they are. Those people who are claiming to correct history are the ones who are helping to distort history.
If I manage to make it through this week, I would like my straitjacket to be black leather and my helmet to sparkle. Thank you.
Wake up, Wyoming, with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Got something to say? Chat him on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app or call 888-97-WOODS.
So, morning, John. John was over there in Granite Canyon. Sent me a note. Said, okay, if you're just joining me. So today's Columbus Day. And several news organizations are saying, Indigenous Peoples Day. Some still call it Columbus Day. And then they get into this whole bit about, he didn't actually discover anything. And You erroneously say he discovered it, and then there's all the atrocities. So what John is saying, Glenn, remember, the land wasn't stolen, it was conquered, which is an important distinction. Let's go back to what I was saying just before about this. Before the white man showed up, let's take a look at North America. Tribes were constantly warring with each other over land. There's a myth out there that, well, you know, they didn't understand the concept of land ownership. The hell they didn't. Tribes in North America were constantly warring with each other over land and conquering each other over land. And so, I mean, eventually, genocide would happen, and it did. There were times that whole tribes, whole nations were wiped out by another tribe. Happened all the time. They murdered, they stole, they kidnapped, they raped, they took slaves of children and women. That was happening in North America. If you want to see even worse than that, go to South America. South America was more advanced. They even had whole cities. And yet look at what they did. If any nation thought that they were more powerful than another nation, they would conquer it, rape and pillage and steal and take slaves and et cetera, et cetera. So when the white man, I'm not excusing that behavior, I'm just saying that's the way it was. And so when the white man showed up, white man was doing all of the same things over in Europe. And so when the two sides met, of course, they were going to collide, and then it was a matter of who conquered who. It could have gone the way that the tribes of North and South America pushed the white man back out into the sea. If they had been strong enough, it would have been. And in fact, I often ask the question, imagine if the tribes of North and South America had become more advanced and stronger, and they discovered Europe. What would have happened to the Europeans? Same thing. Would have been exactly the same thing. I'm not saying it's good or bad or anything else. You figure that out. I'm saying this is what human beings do. This is who, throughout history, human beings have always been this way. So when the white man, being the more advanced tribes, came over to the Americas, what was going to happen? Yeah, of course. Land grabs were going to happen. And the tribe that won was the European tribes because they were more advanced. There you go. That's how it happened. And so should anybody be sorry or feel guilty about that? Well, if you're going to point the finger of blame, you have to point it at everybody then, because there's no innocence here. You can't point to anybody and say, well, these are the victims. There's no victims here. Everybody was doing the same thing. It's just a matter of who won. And in this case, it was the European tribes that won. Okay, but it's just always going to be a matter of just who won that one. And I'll still go back to the example I love bringing up, what would have happened if the Americans at North and South American tribes were more advanced and they had discovered Europe? What would have happened to Europe? Europe would have been conquered by the Americas. What had happened if since the Chinese, they had come over and discovered North America before Columbus did, and like I said, they took all that information back, but you got to read, I think the book's called 1421. It's a very good book, because the Chinese had circumnavigated the entire globe. But when they got back, the political climate had changed, and so all the information they had was destroyed, almost all of it. So almost everything was completely lost, and the Chinese didn't know that North and South America had existed. What if they did, though? What if the Chinese had thought, well, we're going to go over there and conquer that? Then the Americas would be owned, North and South America would be owned by the Chinese right now. Chet and Yoder, fire stick, he says. Jeff, careful, Glenn, you are blowing people's minds with these ideas. Laugh out loud. That's Jeff and Casper. Well, yeah. Here's the thing, though. I wasn't going to talk about this today, but I get to today's news from different news organizations, and a lot of times I like to monitor. I don't read USA Today, really, or CNN. I just like to monitor what they're doing now and then, just kind of scan to see what they're talking about. And, of course, you hit Columbus Day, and you already know in advance what the articles are going to be, right? Yeah, of course we do. In advance, we know. It's the same articles every single year. So, yeah, there's got to be some pushback against it. All right. Good news is, as we get into, we got a news forecast coming up. News forecast. That would be predicting the future news, wouldn't it? That doesn't make any sense. Let me back that up. So there's going to be a newscast. That's better. Coming up next. And after that, the weather forecast. Now, that shows that when we get to Thursday and Friday, there's a chance of precipitation coming in. And a lot of that could be up in the very mountains that need it most because of some fires that we have out there. All right, so be listening for details on that, not just after this newscast. Not news forecast, but newscast. And then when we get into 6:45, Don Day will have an extended forecast for you, which will explain part of that. We'll see how much wet we're going to get. Probably not enough to put out the fires, but definitely enough to help. Morning, Bob. Bob is in Glen Rock. You should look into Kennewick Man. I'll do that. We'll find out what that is. Thanks, Bob. Coming up on 6:30, nice outside this morning. Does not seem as smoky as other mornings for most of the region. But again, that'll come with your weather forecast. Wake up, Wyoming.
Friday.
Serious takes on local politics, or something like that. Tune in weekdays 6 to 10 a.m. to Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
6:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. All right, so real quick, I'll wrap up. Although I'll mention it for those people who joined us later this morning, the whole Columbus Day thing. And I just pointed out that today is Columbus Day. And of course, news media outlets are doing what they always do. Well, it's National Indigenous Peoples, because it's a lie that Columbus discovered anything. He did for the Europeans. And no, when you talk about the atrocities against the American Indians, North and South America, they committed atrocities against each other all the time, including slavery and genocide and human sacrifice, and on it went. So, Jim in Laramie says, morning, by the way, Jim. Jim says, what if all the tribes could have gotten along with themselves and united to fight the white man? They were too busy fighting amongst themselves to try to conquer the other tribes. Now, you got a good point. In fact, let's take a look at something that happened in our area. Let's go up from, I'll start with Casper, Wyoming, and going up the Bighorn Range. And we had promised by treaty at the Laramie Treaty that we had signed, at Fort Laramie, that was going to be the land of the tribes. That was their land. We weren't going to bother with it. Until gold was discovered, and here comes the Bozeman Trail, right? And that's when the tribes, who were still fighting amongst themselves, killing each other, finally decided, what if we got together? And I'm forgetting, maybe you guys can remember which chief was it. But one of the chiefs finally said, look, and they had a big meeting of all the elders. We got to stop this. We got to just put aside our differences and get together and get the white man out of here. And they did. They actually pushed away. We had forts from Casper all the way up the Bighorn chain, all sorts of forts all the way up, and to protect the Bozeman Trail. And all of that was pushed out, and that lasted about a decade. And then finally it all fell apart, mainly because, well, a lot of reasons, but mainly because the idea of killing off the buffalo came to mind, which was their main food source at the time. You get rid of the buffalo, there's no way they can survive. All right. But for a while, we didn't have, as America, the nation of America, despite our own armies, we didn't have what it took to come into that area and push the tribes out. They pushed us out, and that lasted about a decade. Now, that was just the tribes that existed up in Wyoming, Montana area, mostly Wyoming. They all got together and decided, why don't we just work together here instead of killing each other? So he's right. Imagine what would have happened if, when the white man started to push in on the East Coast and push across, that all of the tribes of North America said, screw this, and pushed the white man right back in the sea, and they could have done it. So, yeah, they were disorganized. They were constantly warring with each other, committing atrocities against each other. And white Europeans took advantage of that. Of course they did. All right, real quick. I was talking about fires earlier. Now, you're going to hear in the forecast at 6:45, the extended forecast from Day Weather. What you're going to hear is a little bit of hope. It's not going to put everything out, but let's go up to the Elk Fire. Elk Fire north of Sheridan, or Dayton, that area, has grown to about 87,000 acres. And they are taking extreme measures. Actually, 87,805 last count. 901 firefighters. Who's the one guy? All right. Anyway, 901 firefighters pushing into the area. Man, have we been busting Wyoming's budget, dropping anything from the sky that will help put out that fire. Massive fire breaks being cut. They're really taking out all the stops here. So, when we get to Thursday and Friday, weather changes quite a bit. Temperatures drop a lot. That's going to help. Bad news is it gets a bit windy, but here comes that first shot of winter-ish weather. Some places are just going to get rained on. Other places, especially up in the high country where it's really needed, have a good chance of getting some snow. Now, I'll ask Don Day this at 7:45. It still does not sound to me like it's enough to put out the fires, but it sounds like a pretty good shot might come down in those areas, which will certainly help firefighters get a step up. During the course of this summer, there have been some fires that got a good shot of rain, and it definitely helped firefighters out. But if things got warm and dry right after, they would start losing that ground again. So, let's see what this round brings us. So at 6:45 here, I've got Don Day's extended forecast that I'm about to hit you with. Then we get to 7:45, and Don Day is going to join me live, and I'll go ahead and squeeze his brain for as much information. I know we have to get, wait till we get closer to Thursday and Friday to really know, but most of this way is supposed to land in our mountainous areas. Jeff and Casper, China is trying to do this to us yes, China has actually been trying to conquer us for a long time. Mainly they're trying to do it economically, not militarily, but you're right. 6:42, wake up.
He's talking to himself in a padded room, and you could be the voice in his head. Join the conversation on Wake Up Wyoming, 866-97-WOODS.
6:48 is the time. Let's Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to the icebox. Frank Gambino is waiting by. Okay, Frank?
Yes.
There's a lot of sports that you cover, but sometimes I point out sports that you should cover.
Well, according to you.
Yes. Because
your opinion and my opinion are different opinions.
I understand that.
Okay.
Your listeners out there, I think, would be very interested in finding out the details and who won the North American Wife Carrying Championship.
Well, some husband did.
Yes, some husband did.
Husband number one finished first. Husband number two finished second. Husband three and finished third.
There you go, folks. Frank Gambino just solved it all for you.
Didn't they do that in Scotland or something like that?
They do that as well, yeah. This is where, now the best way to carry the wife
is over your shoulder.
Over your shoulder. In other words, folks, you got to picture her upside down hanging on his back. And her legs are wrapped around, so her feet is almost in his face. That allows him to have his hands forward so he can grab stuff. And boy, is there a challenge here, because they go through, let me see, there's running across fields. There's running through mud.
With the wife.
With the wife over the shoulder there. Oh, people like to get dressed up for this too. There's all sorts of different barriers. The log jump.
Really?
Yeah. They show people working out and stretching up for this, too. I love the costumes that people choose to wear. And then there's all sorts of different ways that people like to try. The normal way is, again, have her hanging upside down on your back, hanging on. That's usually the best way to do this, it turns out.
I was wondering what the wives think of this whole thing.
Well, they seem to be having a great time.
Yeah, the husband's probably going, don't complain or I'm going to throw you in the mud.
Here's the thing. And Frank, you and I can say this because we're single guys. We can do this out loud. You got to make sure that your wife does not get overweight. She needs to be a petite little thing.
I'm glad you said. I'm not going there.
Frank is not even going there. Okay, I get it. I completely get it, Frank.
All righty, in college football from over the weekend, the Wyoming Cowboys let one slip away. They lost to San Diego State in Laramie 27-24, so they're 1-1 in Mountain West Conference play and a paltry 1-5 overall. Injuries have played a part in this decline, so this next man up scenario doesn't have quite the results as opposed to having your first stringers in there. And that was clearly evident on defense. Quarterback Evan Swoboda obviously is having a bad year. 12-31 with 2 interceptions in this game. One of them was returned for a touchdown. It was a bad pass, bad results, just like in the Arizona State game. Swoboda did have a 51-yard touchdown run, but the overall production is sorely lacking. The coaching staff is having a bad year, too, in a number of areas. San Diego State rallied from 7 down in the fourth quarter to get to 2-0 in league play, 3-3 overall. Pokes will be in San Jose to meet San Jose State on Saturday. In Wyoming high school football from over the weekend in 4A, and the Toronto wins the Oil Bowl in Casper for the 8th straight time, beating Kelly Walsh 27-0. NC is 4-3, and Kelly Walsh is 3-4. Cheyenne East 6-1 after a 23-15 win over Cheyenne Central. That's 9 straight wins by East in the series. Central now 1-6. Laramie picked up a win they desperately needed, beating Cheyenne South 62-6. South is 0-6, and they haven't been competitive in a game this season. Sheridan won their 38th game in a row, drilling Rock Springs 49-12, so Sheridan is 7-0 and will host 7-0 Campbell County on Friday as the Camels beat Thunder Basin and Gillette 35-7. In 2A, Bighorn crushed Glenrock 54-14. Burns Big over Upton 48-18. And in 1A 9-man, Pine Bluff smothered Saratoga 63-7. In 1A 6-man, Riverside over Midwest 63-29. Casper Christian lost to Farson Eden 52-18. And KC defeated Meeteetse 54-12. In the National Football League, the Denver Broncos are 3-3 after losing at home to the Los Angeles Chargers yesterday, 23-16. The Broncos were just awful on offense in the first half, but made it a game in the fourth quarter with 16 points. Quarterback Bo Nix, 19 of 33 for 216 yards, 2 touchdown passes, and an interception. The Bronco defense was shorthanded in the secondary as Patrick Surtain suffered a concussion on the first defensive play. Denver's 3-3 on the year. They'll be at New Orleans on Thursday. And in Major League Baseball, in the National League playoffs, the Los Angeles Dodgers have a 1-0 lead in the National League Championship Series with a 9-0 win over the New York Mets. Cheyenne native Brandon Nimmo, the Mets left fielder, was 0 for 3 at the plate in that game, and that's it in sports.
You kept telling us that they were supposed to win this.
Well, I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and I won't do that again.
Okay.
Except for the Colorado State game, which they have to win, or they just quit.
Yeah,
just you know what? They're not very good.
Okay.
They keep making mistakes.
Right.
They don't look very well coached. Yeah. The quarterback is struggling. There's a lot of people hurt. These are all stuff that happens when you have lost 5 of 6 games. You are what you are.
Okay.
And give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yep. But that didn't work out. See, it sounds like you also blamed a lot of things. You're not saying it's Bob's fault. It's a lot of things.
Well, let's put it this way. All disasters, if you look at it, not just in sports, but everything.
Like this radio show.
Is a cascading. It's not just one event. It's cascading events.
Yes, like this radio show.
Yeah, it's we can't just blame one entity on this radio show.
Like me, it's not just my fault.
No, it's not. No.
It's a whole bunch of things.
Oh, I could go on and on and on.
Yes, okay. All right, thank you, Frank. Appreciate it. Backing me up on that one. Coming up on some local business that we have to take care of. We're going to roll into news time after that. National local update on the weather forecast. I do want to take a look at some of the fires that we're having in Wyoming and some of the progress made and not made, what they're doing about that, and a little bit of the hope that we have for fighting these fires. As I said, as you just heard from the extended forecast from Don Day, possibly some wet moving into the area that'll help them out. Let's Wake Up Wyoming. 7:06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. It's a Monday, so that means rinse and repeat.
Today's show is sponsored by ice. It's water, but in a solid state. Caution. It may fall from the sky.
And some of that in the form of snow could actually fall later this week on some of those fire-ridden areas. Hang on, I'll get to
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilet, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave.
Okay, real quick, last hour of the program I did talk about today. It's supposed to be Columbus Day. It's supposed to be Columbus Day. And, of course, every news organization has to say Indigenous Peoples Day because Columbus didn't discover anything. And, of course, they get their version of the story all wrong, too. And we already talked about no victims here because, tribes of North and South America were already doing horrendous things to each other before we got here and did horrendous things to them. So this, though, I just found this meme accidentally. But it's from the Babylon Bee, so you know it's going to be good. Here is a lovely young lady, and she's stretched out across her sofa and smiling at her iPhone there. It reads, carefully crafting a post about the horrors of colonialism in support of Indigenous Peoples Day from a $660,000 house on stolen land from an iPhone made by slaves. So there. For all of you people out there who think you're taking the moral high ground. All right, moving on to something else real quick. Really important. I did notice yesterday I got a chance to go flying again, and I noticed when I got up into the air that the fine layer of smoke, it's still smoky, it's still hazy out there. But in most places, it's better, has been better. There was a fine layer of smoke at a certain altitude, a couple thousand feet off the ground. Other than that, it was mostly just haze. And as you would expect, how bad it is just depending on where you are, but it was better than it has been. We've gone through some really thick, smoky days for a while here in the state of Wyoming. And while there are a lot of little fires going on, this is mostly two big fires. Of course, that one that's in the Elk Fire, that's north of Sheridan, and then the other one around the Togety Pass area, which actually was two fires combined into one. And while this covered a massive amount of acreage at this time. So, a couple of stories here. One of them, actually both these are from Cowboy State Daily, did some good stories. I really appreciate what they've done with this. One of them, firefighters spike camp near Burgess Junction. And they talk about a quickie little camp that was set up near the Dayton area for firefighters. You figure there's like 901 guys. I want to know who the one guy is. 901 guys, and they're all in that area working some really incredibly long hours fighting these fires. And so you got to figure the logistics of taking care of these guys has got to be incredible. And so this is now some of what I see here in the picture is there was already some little cabins in that area that are just being donated. Here you go. Here's your cabins. Others are trailers and whatever other equipment. They can come in there bringing all the comforts of home they possibly can for these guys. It's a really good story with some video here, too, about how they've brought in whatever they could to help these guys out. You got to figure the resources, food, and, of course, you got to have showers. They definitely are going to need some sleep here. I mean, definitely. So there's a place to go ahead and crash out. And medical, if necessary, so far that hasn't been, thankfully, that I'm aware of. But a lot of tents, too. A lot of these firefighters just went out into a field around the campsite and just set up a whole bunch of tents. Looks like the tents were provided for them. Oh, porta potties. Got to have the porta potties. So that's a camp that's set up in the area. That's a very good story. Also, a group of horses may have been left homeless by the Wyoming firefighters. 3 horses, a mare and her foals, and another mare that's pregnant, are safe and sound, the story says, at an animal rescue center east of Cheyenne. But the center's director would like to know more about them, such as where they came from, who owned them, their veterinary histories. And this is just a couple of the animals in ranching areas that have been found out in that area where not a whole lot is known about the horse. It's just that they had nowhere to go. and nobody knows where the horses came from. In other words, with fences burning down, so much open, you can imagine, for those of you who work in that area, as fire moves through the area, fences burn down, and people's livestock moves out of the way, of course, and then we wind up with animals just wandering across the prairie, and then they're found, and caring people will go ahead and pick them up and bring them to someplace where they can be cared for. Now the question is, well, who does this belong to? So that's one of the other problems that we have. Now, I will talk to Don Day is coming on at 7:45, as he does every morning at this time, every weekday morning. And one of the things I'm going to try to squeeze out of him is when we get into Thursday and Friday, temperatures cool down quite a bit. Now, the wind that comes in, I want to ask him about that because that's not necessarily good news, especially for the firefighters out there. The winds move in, but that brings a lot of cold, in fact, a pretty good drop in temperature with some moisture. Some rain will come into some areas. In the higher elevations, that's snow. Now, the question will be, is that going to be enough? I don't think it's enough to put out the fires, but it certainly will be helpful, and that mostly happens on Friday, according to the current forecast. I'm also wondering about what volume of snow are we talking, but it will hit in exactly the areas that we need to fight these fires. Now, it just reminds me of go back a few years over in the Snowy Range area. I've told you this before. I've gone camping there. I had gone up to a reservoir to go camping. And it's a beautiful area, but there was so much beetle kill, so many dead trees standing and laying down. My thought was, wow, one little fire gets out of control, and this area is just history. It's going to be a mess. And that's exactly what happened shortly after I camped there. And, man, that burned all summer long. Massive area. And the firefighters just could not get a handle on that. It was too much. And that beetle kill in that area should have been taken care of a long time ago, but it was just left. And that's part of what's been happening in the Bighorns and in Togety Pass. So much has just been unmanaged land, which is a big part of the problem. So finally a snowstorm came. It was about this time of year, too. Huge snowstorm that covered that whole area. It was exactly what we needed. Put the whole thing out in one shot, as if it was aimed for just one big snowstorm hitting the exact spot we needed. So that's a potential to happen. We'll find out. Again, Don Day, 7:45. I'll ask him all about it.
Why have they pickled every vegetable but not cucumbers?
You do. We're not going to make it, are we?
Glenn Woods. He talks to you, not at you. Be part of the show at 888-97-WOODS. This is Wake Up Wyoming on K2 Radio.
7:20 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. So, okay, just something to help make your Monday. Now, from time to time, I play a Kamala Harris word salad. We all need salad in our diet. We do. Now, some of the older ones sound like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, words of wisdom from Kamala Harris.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. You know? What can be unburdened by what has been.
There are those who are unable to see what can be, but there are many more who are able to see what can be unburdened by what has been.
This is where she thinks she's being deep and philosophical. And she's not. It doesn't really make any sense when you, even for a moment, just try to think about what she's saying. Don't think about it too much. You'll get a headache, honestly. Now, I'm going to play one more, an older one for you. Yes, I have a collection of these, and you're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, words of wisdom from Kamala Harris.
Remember Venn diagrams, those three circles? Right. And then let's just see where they overlap.
Oh, God,
you will not be surprised because I have constructed a Venn diagram on this. Remember those three circles, how they overlap?
Yes,
I love Venn diagrams. So I just do. Yeah, whenever you're dealing with conflict, pull out a Venn diagram.
Right, okay. Next time I'm dealing with conflict, I'll do that. So there's a new one. Brand spanking new one. Now, I just challenge you, and please, okay, the phone number for this show is 888-97-WOODS, 888-97-WOODS. If you can explain what she's saying here, I would love to hear your explanation, right? Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, words of wisdom from Kamala Harris.
Because what we see is so hard to see that we lose faith or a vision of those things we cannot see but must know.
Okay, I see. Okay. I'm trying to pick that apart here. Let me get rid of the first part. I'm going to pause this.
Ladies and gentlemen, words of wisdom from Kamala Harris.
Okay, pause. Okay, now I'm going to play that again. Okay, and I'm going to let you hear. In fact, what I'll do, I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to play a piece, pause it, play a piece, pause it. So you can hear bit by bit, and then we'll try to figure out what she's saying there. All right, here we go.
Because what we see is so hard to see.
Is so hard to see. So we're having a hard time seeing what we see. See, I'm already confused. What we see is so hard to see. We're having a hard time seeing what we see.
That we lose faith.
That we lose faith. Oh, okay. What we see is so hard to see that we've lost faith. But we see it anyway. Okay. I'm already a little lost here, but and the next part.
Or a vision of those things we cannot see but must know.
Okay. It's that last part that really kind of gets me.
Vision of those things we cannot see but must know.
Okay. It's a vision of those things we cannot see but must know. Is it too early for this? I guess I can say it's always too early for this, but that last part.
A vision of those things we cannot see but must know.
But must know. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm just going to toss that out there for you. Anybody who has any freaking clue what she just said there, please call the show and explain that to me, because I have no idea what the hell that was. And it's just maddening to me that and that's what a word salad is. A word salad is when you throw out a bunch of words that sound deep, but are obviously not. I think, and this is where I really do believe that she thinks she's being deep and philosophical. And so she throws out all of these visionary words. And a word salad is, again, when you take words and phrases like that, put them in a big bowl, mix them up, and serve it. And nothing actually makes any sense at all, does it? All right. Now, if you need me to play that again, I will. Mind you, other people are going to curse you for that, but I will play that again. And if you can help us to understand what she said, in fact, I'll toss this out there. If you know what she said, I am willing to pay for 2 months of free therapy with the psychiatric counselor of your choice. Okay? Okay. By the way, I do have a story here that Harris has vowed to tax wealthy corporations yet again. Yet, what she wants those wealthy to pay for, there's not enough money there to pay for. Story here says Vice President Kamala Harris says she plans to pay for her promises. She has many promises that she made on the campaign trail by requiring the wealthy and large corporations to pay more in taxes. This is always the promise of the left. They need to pay their fair share, even though those wealthy people are paying more than their fair share. The idea that they pay less in taxes than you do is false. However, source says she'll face obstacles getting her plans in their existing form through Congress, and the taxes she's proposed won't cover the cost of her spending promises, according to analysis from various, including committees for a responsible federal budget and other watchdog groups. Harris has reported, among other things, raising the federal minimum wage, expanding child care tax credits, and $2,000 earned income tax. The Affordable Care Act, she wants to expand that quite a bit. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. The Unaffordable Scare Act. But Harris's revenue plan would only offset some of her proposed spending, the story says. It would add an additional $3.5 trillion at least to the project to our national debt through 2035. Results about $7.25 trillion of deficit increase and measured about $4.25 trillion in deficits. Okay. And there's just absolutely no way to pay for all of this. Bill Hippie in LaGrange. it's obvious I get it. Bill Hippie in LaGrange thinks that what Kamala Harris was saying is the ice cream has no bones. Okay. Rick in Cheyenne says, Glenn, it's the Reader's Digest version of Three Blind Mice. I can go with that. In fact, let me go back here. I have Joe Biden. Let's see. That's during the debate, things like that. I have Joe Biden, some of his word salads, too. And his can be just as bad. Let's see. Here's a Biden. Here we go. Biden translator.
I mean, he has made clear that.
You guys just don't understand. What he's trying to say is, as long as the courtyard is available, then the car keys are going to be next to the chair. But when you have tomatoes that are not ripe when the lights are off, then nobody's going to know what happens when a basketball goal is not standing upright. But when you have a tree that's leaning over the fence, then it's only going to be like a parked car anyway. So just make sure that, when the door's closed, that the windows are always on fire.
Okay, see? Okay, now, so using that, translate this.
Ladies and gentlemen, words of wisdom from Kamala Harris.
Because what we see is so hard to see that we lose faith or a vision of those things we cannot see but must know.
Okay. Yeah, again, anybody have any clue? 888-97-WOODS is the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. Or you can do what some of these other people have done. Text me using the Wake Up Wyoming app. Just use the chat option there, and I'll go ahead and read it right here on the air. If you can explain the hell she just said, because I'd really like to know. I don't think, and this is to borrow a brilliant phrase from Donald Trump, when Trump was debating Biden. And Trump said, I don't know what he said at the end of that sentence, and I don't think he knows either. And that's what I'm saying here with Kamala Harris. Yeah, I don't think she knows what she just said. It's not that you and I don't know. That's part of it. She doesn't even know what she just said. Coming up on 7:30, local news coming your way. Hello, Shorty. And I-80 John, they're sending me notes, which I'll read next. Wake Up Wyoming.
Friday.
Covering world-ending catastrophes for years to come. It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Find content, chat live, and listen on demand on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app.
Real quick here. We're trying to decipher something that Kamala Harris said. More word salad. Listen carefully. See if you can figure this out.
Because what we see is so hard to see that we lose faith or a vision of those things we cannot see but must know.
Okay, Sam is in Cheyenne. Hi, Sam.
Hey, good morning, Glenn with two M's. How you doing?
Very good, sir. What you got?
Hey, well, I think I got it figured out. I think Kamala is philosophizing about she's sitting on the porcelain throne and dropping the kids off at the pool, and she's trying to figure out how to wrap it all up.
Okay, there you go. So it has to do with porcelain and pools and a throne.
Yeah, she's just trying to figure out, philosophizing about a daily natural thing that we all know.
We all have to do, yes.
But she must know. It's hard to envision. It's hard to see what the heck's going on.
Yes.
And she's just trying to figure all that out.
What I get out of what you're saying here is basically it's crap.
I think that might be another one.
All right. Yep. Thank you, Sam. Let's go to Scott, who's in Fort Collins. Morning, Scott.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
I think what Kamala is looking for is the Special K recipe that her mother used to make cookies for her out of, but it's right in front of her face, so she can't see it. The other explanation is she just needs glasses.
Okay, I was going for the glasses thing as you were saying that. So, okay. And could this have anything to do with the fog of war?
Could just be the fog of her mind, which is never incumbent.
Probably it. She is basically in the same condition many people with you in Colorado are, but she didn't need pot to get there.
Right. It's the altitude and the government.
There you go. All right, thank you. Let's take a look at this one more time, and I got some comments people have sent it. Here's the whole thing. Well, hang on a second now. Let me pause it. I got to reset my thing here. Okay, here we go. Boom.
Ladies and gentlemen, words of wisdom from Kamala Harris.
Because what we see is so hard to see. That we lose faith or a vision of those things we cannot see but must know.
I see. It sounds like crap to me, but all right. Chet and Yoder, peas in the pod, they talk like this, but I'm getting a lot of comments now. They are not, they're just mumbling. Jones and Casper, she is reciting Karl Marx quotes in his Communist Manifesto. Shorty and Casper says Kamala's word Harris could be relatable to religion and human nature. Sure. You know, she could write a book of religion that's nothing but just word salad, and people would sit around trying to pick apart her words as if they actually meant something. Morning, Blue Eyes, she's in Douglas. Maybe Dave from San Francisco can decipher Kamala's comments. That's a great idea. If I could get a hold of Dave, I would. And Slug, I think is how you pronounce it. He's in Wheatland. SCLUD. Am I pronouncing that Slug? Anyway, he says it's easy to understand that Kamala is referring to Einstein's light quantum hypothesis, which helps explain certain visible light behavior, which could not be explained if visible light were known to exist in the form of a wave, or rather than the form of particles. Now, you see, I think he has the answer to that. This is what they try to convince us of. Someone like her is like listening to Obama, for example. Obama is so wise, we just don't understand the nuances. He was one of the most naive presidents ever. Same thing with Biden. You just don't understand. You don't understand the nuances of what he's saying. So that's what's happening with Harris. If you were smart enough, you would understand the nuances of what she was saying. But you don't. Oh, G-Man and Gillette. This is a view. Idiotic Happy Gilmore. Billy Madison. Okay. Let me see if I can go ahead and, I think this is, what is this going to be, a meme? I'll go ahead and grab this and see if I can see. Now, people are not only calling the show at 888-97 Woods, but they're also sending me text messages, which I can go ahead and look up. Okay, here we go. That is one of the most insanely idiotic things I've ever heard. At no point in your rambling. Oh, wait a second now. I know exactly what you just sent me. Okay, I tell you what. G-Man, that's good. I'm glad you sent me that. Now, it's going to take a moment for me to set that up. But that was from the Happy Gilmore movie. Basically, Gilmore was on television and was asked a question, and he didn't have an answer. And so he just rambled. And the television host called him out as that was just insane rambling that made no sense, which is really what we need when Harris talks. Sort of like the emperor has no clothes, like that. The emperor has no clothes. It took a little kid to call it out. He's not wearing anything. It's really going to take someone to stand up, mainly major news media, and say, of course, can we finally just admit that she actually didn't say anything? Because she didn't. Is there anybody else here who can we just come out and say it? She didn't say anything. 742, Wake Up Wyoming.
The only show broadcasting from a bunker under Devil's Tower. Hey, it's cold down here. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods, 6 a.m. weekdays on AM 1030 and FM 95.1.
Don Day from Day Weather. Okay, first off, Don, thank you for a beautiful weekend. Appreciate it. I mean, well, I got out and enjoyed it. I even went flying.
Well, good for you. Yeah. Hopefully there wasn't too much.
No, there was at a higher level, a nice thin band of it. And then there was a lot of haze out there, but not bad. I've been through far worse, to the point that my eyes were watering and my sinuses were bothering me. Now, as we get into this week, I notice we start still, we've been here a little bit on the warm side. We're still sort of stuck, right?
For another 3 days, yeah.
Okay.
So through Wednesday, then in the western part of the state, Wednesday night into Thursday morning is when things begin to change. So as we always like to say, it depends on where you are in terms of when the weather pattern changes. But it'll first be those northern and western counties of the state late Wednesday night, but especially Thursday. Then east of the divide, the bigger changes arrive on Friday.
Okay, now big changes. I noticed. First off, we'll save the good news for last. First off, I noticed there's some wind that blows in with this. Enough to be a problem for firefighters?
Well, yeah. I mean, as we know, when you have a big change in the weather, you always have wind out ahead of it. We'll see some increasing winds, especially Wednesday. But you're not going to get help for the fire without it, okay? Right. So you've got to get that weather pattern change to come. So there's good news first, bad news first, and good news after the system.
Now, the good news is when this wet finally hits us, I notice it seems to be forecasted right where we need it.
It is. I think the Pack Trail Fire and the Elk Fire both will get snowed on. I think both will see enough in the way of moisture and colder temperatures over enough of a period of time to really, really help. Not just a little, but help a lot.
Okay. Oh, that's what I was waiting for, help a lot, because I was worried that, it's one thing if we kind of pat down the fire a little bit. We've had some storms move through this summer that gave a little bit of help, and firefighters were able to get ahead of the game, but then things dried out and they wound up back where they started from. But you're saying help, I heard the word a lot in there.
Yes. I have no idea if it'll be enough to put them out, and completely say they're done. But it's the start of the beginning of the end. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Now, does that mean, I'm squeezing you for everything I can here. Does that mean that when this one's done, we can look forward to maybe another system and another one after that as that lineup starts that we're used to in the wintertime?
Yeah, the lineup will get started with this. The question will be timing, but this is a 180-degree flip in the pattern. So so instead of this stagnant pattern we're in, we're going to have up and downs. Yeah, we'll have some warmer, drier days, but nothing like the warmth that we've seen now. And when we do have warmer, drier days, they're not going to last weeks. They're going to be a day or two before the next front comes in. I really expect the latter days of October into early November to really be winter-like at times, quite honestly.
Okay. Now, see, there's another piece of good news with this. You won't be bored anymore, so I'm not going to have to put up with you just sort of slogging through another weather forecast. I get to hear you excited again.
I know I'm going to have to work.
That's all right. Oh, well, I'm sorry. All right. Thank you, Don. Don Day with Day Weather. But no, that's really good news when he says, quite a bit could actually come in. Could actually be kind of a lot. Off we go to the ice box where Frank Gambino is waiting by. Okay, Frank, you've heard about the stages of denial. And,
yes,
and stages of depression, too, right?
Yes, stages of death, too. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Denial, you kind of look for forgiveness.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I found out there is the same when it comes to when you're looking for butter in the grocery store. We start with denial. I can't believe it's not butter.
Right.
You know that one. I purchased that one before.
It's right over there.
That's just denial.
Yeah.
Then there's anger.
Yes.
What? Not butter. That's actually a brand. What? Not butter? That's angry.
So it's margarine.
Yeah. Then
it's right over there next to the other one.
Sure. Then we start to get into the bargaining stage.
Yes.
Could it be butter?
It could be.
That's actually a brand.
And it's right next to the other two over there. Yeah.
But now you're bargaining. Could it be butter? Yes, okay. And then finally, depression. This is not butter.
Okay.
Another actual brand name. And then finally, we always have to do this. We have to get into the acceptance stage. Because after all of that, you finally just accept the situation you're in.
And say there is no butter.
No. Margarine.
Yeah.
There you go.
There's butter out there. You just have to find it.
Yes. You do have, well, I still enjoy, and I love picking, I will never stop picking on this. For quite a bit of time. Remember when they started telling us butter was bad for us, don't eat butter.
Oh, yeah.
Eat margarine. And then they found out that margarine is worse for us than butter, and they said go back to butter.
Are you surprised at conclusions like that?
Not at all, no. I just, to this day, that happened when we were kids.
Yeah.
To this day, I still pick on that, and so many other things these so-called experts told us that later on they said, on second thought.
Yeah, we're not quite right about that. College football from over the weekend. The Wyoming Cowboys let one slip away, losing to San Diego State at home 27-24 to drop to 1-1 in Mountain West Conference play and a paltry 1-5 overall. Injuries have played a part in this decline. So the next man up scenario, doesn't quite have the results as opposed to having your first stringers in the game. That was clearly evident on defense. Quarterback Evan Swoboda obviously is having a bad year. 12 of 31 in this game for 2 interceptions. One of them returned for a touchdown. There was a bad pass with bad results, just like in the Arizona State game. Swoboda did have a 51-yard touchdown run, but the overall production is sorely lacking. And the coaching staff is having a bad year, too, in a number of areas. San Diego State rallied from 7 down in the fourth quarter to get to 2-0 in league play, 3-3 overall. And the Cowboys will be at San Jose State on Saturday. Wyoming High School football from over the weekend in 4A. And the Toronto wins the Oil Bowl in Casper for the 8th straight time, beating Kelly Walsh 27-0. NC is 4-3, and Kelly Walsh is 3-4. Cheyenne East is 6-1 after a 23-15 win over Cheyenne Central. So that's 9 straight wins by East in that series. And Central is 1-6. Laramie is 2-5, picking up a win they desperately needed, beating Cheyenne South 62-6. South is winless on the year, and they have not been competitive in a game so far this season. Sheridan has won their 38th game in a row in 4A, drilling Rock Springs 49-12, and Sheridan at 7-0 will host 7-0 Campbell County on Friday as the Camels beat Thunder Basin and Gillette 35-7. In 2A, Bighorn crushed Glenrock 54-14, Burns Big over Upton Sundance 48-18, and 1A 9-man Pine Bluff smothered Saratoga 63-7, and in 1A 6-man Riverside over Midwest 63-29, Casper Christian lost to Farson Eden 52-18, and KC defeated Matitsi 54-12. In the National Football League, the Denver Broncos are 3-3 after losing to the Los Angeles Chargers at home 23-16 yesterday. Broncos were just playing awful on offense in the first half, but made a game of it in the fourth quarter with 16 points. Quarterback Bo Nix 19-33 for 216 yards, 2 touchdown passes, and 1 interception. The Bronco defense was shorthanded in the secondary as Patrick Surtain suffered a concussion on the first defensive play of the game for the Broncos, so they're 3-3 on the year. They'll be at New Orleans on Thursday. Major League Baseball in the playoffs in the National League, the LA Dodgers have a one game to none lead in the National League Championship Series with a 9-0 win over the New York Mets. Cheyenne native Brandon Nimmo, the Mets left fielder, 0-3 at the plate in that contest. And that's it in sports.
And all of Frank's baseball picks so far have been wrong.
Well, I secretly think the Dodgers may win the whole 9 yards.
You secretly think that?
Yeah. Well, I'll just tell you now. I think the Los Angeles Dodgers will win it. And sometimes they're their own worst enemy, but boy, they spent a lot of money, and they're playing a team, the Mets, that spent a lot of money.
Okay. No, I'm just pointing out when you say I secretly think that, you're sitting in a radio studio and that's a live mic in front of you.
Oh.
Frank. Yeah.
I thought it was a secret between me and you.
Please.
No?
I can't keep a damn secret. What are you kidding me? Thank you, Frank. Coming up on some local business that we have to take care of. We're going to roll into news time after that national local update on the weather forecast. Oh, we get into open phones in the next hour, too. So you can jump in. We're still trying to decipher what Kamala Harris said, plus some other local news we have to talk about. 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97 WOODS. Wake up, Wyoming. 8:06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. It's a Monday, so rinse and repeat. Here we go. Oh, by the way, I've got some more on the Kamala Harris word salad, and special thanks to G-Man in Gillette, for one, sending me this. I've got it all set up, ready to go.
Today's show is sponsored by ice. It's water, but in a solid state. Caution. It may fall from the sky.
And some of that falling is going to happen, according to Don Day, about Wednesday, Thursday. In some of the areas that are most impacted by fires, which ought to, according to him, have a pretty good impact. Now, the most dangerous time of the program every single day.
Warning. Wake Up Wyoming is about to enter daily open phones. This means that anyone will be allowed to call in and talk about anything. I mean, imagine if we actually allowed you on air to say anything you wanted. Scary, right? Well, we're just that brand of crazy. If you are offended by what other people think, then maybe you want to tune out right about now. Just saying. If you should choose to call, just remember, the more funny and interesting you are, the longer Glenn will keep you on the line. Obnoxious jerks will be hung up on. Dave, all right, strap in, and let's do this thing.
888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. Talk about what I'm talking about. Change the subject, fine by me. So, first off, happy Columbus Day. Some are trying to say Indigenous Peoples Day. First hour of the program, I basically went through why. Yes, I know that there were already people here when Columbus sailed the ocean blue, but that's okay. Because in Europe, there had been some prior knowledge about another continent or two over here, but that information had been lost. And so Columbus discovered America for Europeans. The natives in North and South America already knew they were here, but they discovered it for Europeans. So did he discover America? For them, he did, yeah. And as far as all of the atrocities that were committed, no matter where you go in the world, people were committing atrocities against other people. So in North and South America, before the white man ever showed up, you should go back in your history books and look at the kind of horrific atrocities that they committed against each other before white man ever got here. So nothing changed. It's just that there was a new tribe in the mix. That's it. And Europeans and Asians, of course, were always committing atrocities against each other. So there's no good guy here. Sorry, there's not. So if you want to call it Indigenous Peoples Day, fine. I'm still going to go with Columbus Day personally, and that's only because Columbus discovered it for Europeans. And that's what brought about the greatest nation the world has ever seen sometime later. That wouldn't have happened if Columbus hadn't sailed over and bumped into he was completely lost, but bumped into some islands and said, hey, guess what I found? All right, now, last hour, I went through the latest Kamala Harris word salad, and it is the worst one I've ever heard. And we're trying to pick it apart. So if you're just joining us, we could use your help. I'm going to play it for you. But then, with some help from G-Man from Gillette, he reminded me of something from a movie, the Happy Gilmore movie, that I'm going to tag at the end of this. Let's put the two together.
Ladies and gentlemen, words of wisdom from Kamala Harris.
Because what we see is so hard to see that we lose faith or a vision of those things we cannot see but must know.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Yeah, especially that last part right there. But hold on, let's back up a little bit and let's take a look at this. Billy Madison, 1995, and I'm just going to play a little bit of this. He's in some kind of a game show thing, and there's a live audience there. And the topic picked is English literature. Now, we're just going to go through a little bit of this.
U.S. presidents, My Wife the Tramp.
Oh, that's a good one. I'll pick that topic.
Burning Dog Poo and the Human Response.
Yes.
Reflections of Society and Literature.
Yeah.
Reflections of Society and Literature.
Okay. That's what he's got to talk about.
Mr. Madison, the Industrial Revolution changed the face of the modern novel forever. Discuss, citing specific examples.
Okay. So he gets up there in front of the audience, and there's a pretty good-sized crowd here. He has no idea what to say, obviously. Audience is waiting. Come on. They want him to win this one. So he gets into a word salad.
The Industrial Revolution, to me, is just like a story I know called The Puppy Who Lost His Way.
Okay.
The world was changing, and the puppy was getting bigger. So you see, the puppy was like industry, in that they were both lost in the woods. And nobody, especially the little boy, society, knew where to find them.
Now, while he's doing this, everybody's nodding their heads in the audience like, oh, yeah, this is so deep. This is so rich. He's making it up. He's throwing out a word salad. And nobody wants to seem stupid. So they're all nodding their heads in agreement. And there's his big conclusion. And they think that he said something brilliant. And that's when we hear...
Mr. Madison, what you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
True.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response,
Kamala,
were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Kamala Harris.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Democrats.
I award you no points. And may God have mercy on your soul.
Especially that last part right there. Arnie and Casper, maybe Kamala is channeling Professor Irwin Corey. RH in Wiggins, Colorado. Hi, Glenn. The Kamala word salad problem shows how stupid our society has become overall. So many Americans are listening to this and believing it is intellectual coming out of her. That's true. Just like this Happy Gilmore thing that I just played. That was so intellectual. Nothing intellectual about it. It shows how our educational system is lacking basic academics and sacrificing the basics for social politics BS. Yeah. Well, again, all you got to do. By the way, this is not a new thing. This has happened throughout history. There's many pseudo-intellectuals that get up and speak like this. Sounds like they're saying something deep, and yet they're not saying anything at all. But if you point out that they're not saying anything at all, they will accuse you of not being smart enough to understand the nuances of what they said. So yeah, Kamala Harris may think that she actually said something deep, and there's some Democrats out there that might think she actually said something deep. But I agree with what was just said on the Happy Gilmore movie there. Everybody in this room is dumber for having heard it.
Woke Radio WOKE. Your donations keep us going, so go borrow some money from Mom and send it our way.
Start your day the right way. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Join the conversation at 888-97-WOODS.
8:20 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Zolkow's picking on Kamala Harris for a bit. And let me go on, not so much with her, but one more thing on that idea. I came across a story this morning, Nobel Prize in Economics. Now, I have, over the years, gotten very cynical about prizes and awards and so on in general. I mean, really cynical. Especially over the years as Nobel Prizes have been handed out to people who, I mean, obviously do not deserve them. I mean, just horrible people have won the Nobel Peace Prize, for example. I remember they gave the Nobel Peace Prize to Obama after he had been in office for 11 days. And when asked why, they said, we expect him to live up to it. So, you know, it really doesn't carry a lot of weight with me. I'm very cynical about a lot of awards. But this is the Nobel Prize in Economics awarded to 3 different gentlemen for explaining why some nations are richer and why some nations are poorer. Now, you didn't need Nobel Prize winning laureates to explain this to you. Although I think some people do. For example, remember, there's only one fat man in North Korea. Everybody else is starving. And yet some people still admire Kim Jong-un. There are still those Hollywood celebrities who admire Venezuela. And yet starvation in Venezuela. That love the idea of the Soviet Union and communist China. They think socialism, communism work. There are still your Bernie Sanders out there and your Kamala Harrises. People like that like this idea of centralized big government running things. And yes, there are people who call themselves conservatives who are the same way. So here's the story. Got to be careful. It's from CNN, so I'll edit as I go. Quote, when Europeans colonized large parts of the globe, the institutions in those societies changed. the communities, cite Economic Works, while in many places this was aimed at exploiting the indigenous population, in other places it laid the foundation for inclusive political and economic systems. The laureates have shown that one explanation for the differences in countries in prosperity is the societal institutions that were introduced during these colonizations. Countries developed inclusive institutions which uphold the rule of law and property rights, and over time became prosperous. That's actually important. While those that developed extractive institutions, which the laureates were as squeezed resources from the population to benefit the elites, experienced low economic growth. Now, it goes into more and more detail, but let's just put it this way. When you have big government trying to run everything, not just institutions, but trying to rule over the people, you wind up with a society that is not prosperous. And yet, when you have a society that's set up with institutions that thrive on liberty, remember, government is not supposed to be involved in the economy. That's big, because right now it's a big mistake we're making here in America. Government is not supposed to be involved in the economy. Every time we have inflation or stagflation or high unemployment or low unemployment or gas prices fluctuate, everybody looks to the president. He's not supposed to have anything to do with the economy. The economy is supposed to run itself. What government is in charge of is making sure, first off, we're in a bubble of freedom so we can participate in this. That's what the military is for. Next, we have a few basic laws, not many, a few basic laws to make the game fair. So in other words, when people try to cheat, steal, defraud, etc., we have government to take care of those dishonest players. Other than that, let the market do what it does. One of the problems that we have, if you wonder, and you shouldn't be, why are your energy costs continuing to get higher and higher and higher? Because government is trying to give you affordable energy. The government told you they were going to give you clean, affordable, reliable energy. And yet, the more they try to provide this for us, the less clean, the less affordable, and the less reliable it is. Government continues to try to tell us that they're going to give us free, reliable health care. Quality reliable. And yet, the more government squeezes on health care, the less affordable it becomes, the less accessible, the less reliable. The only thing government should be doing is when there's a doctor that's a quack or medicine that's snake oil. I was about to say skank oil. Sorry, snake oil. Skank oil is an entirely different thing. That's what you find at strip clubs. That's a whole different thing. Snake oil. Or when you find, see, now I've distracted myself with that. Right? When you have insurance companies that have reneged on their contracts, government goes and handles those people. Other than that, it is completely up to you. There are those people in American government today who do not want you making your own decisions involving health care, where you live, how you live, what you drive, whether you have a gas stove in your house or not. Did you want an electric car or not? The freest societies where government just controls the bad players are the most successful societies. That's what these 3 Nobel laureates actually figured out. Now, I don't know why they win a Nobel Peace Prize for this. We didn't know this? I guess not. I guess I would hope that these guys actually win it for a good thing. I would hope that some liberal college professors who claim to be economic professors, they claim to have degrees in economics, will actually read why these guys won the Nobel Peace Prize and will take a close look at what they believe compared to what actually works. In other words, reality, not their socialist fantasies, but reality. I would love to take the findings from these Nobel Peace Prize winning laureates on what makes a successful economy, a successful country, a prosperous people, and hand it to someone like Bernie Sanders. Chew on this for a while, Bernie. He spent his whole life being a socialist. And yet he got rich off of capitalism, by the way. So why isn't this being taught in universities? And it won't be. These three guys actually win it for a good reason, which is rare with the Nobel Peace Prize. Do you think this will be taught in universities as something important? That the way for prosperity is to get government out of the way. Government is just there to make sure bad players are dealt with. Okay? Don't steal. Don't cheat. Don't pollute. And by the way, CO2 is not a pollutant, but you get the idea. Okay? You're going to be a good, honest player, or we're going to deal with you. Now, get out there and innovate. And government is not going to be involved in it. It is up to you. May the best innovation, may the best capitalist win. And yet young people walk out of college thinking that capitalism is evil. Well, all we ever have to do to win this argument is just look around the globe at who is successful and who's not. That's all we have to do. You want to win the argument, look around the globe to see who's successful and who's not. That's it. And the argument is won by, reality. Blue Eyes and Douglas. So you just wonder what they are doing here. If they love these countries so much, let's get together and pay their way out of here. I've been saying that my entire life, and yet they never want to leave. Bernie Sanders loves Cuba, and yet he'll never move there. Probably because he doesn't want to be a slave. Coming up on some local business we have to take care of. We're going to roll into news time after that. National local update on the weather forecast. Nice long segment of open phones, and you and I get back into it again with 888-97 Woods, the number you call in, or text me on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
Friday. Got something to say to Glenn? Use the chat on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app and get your opinions straight to the studio with K2 Radio.
8:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. And yeah, you can change the subject. Fine by me. So I want to get into something real quick. Hang on, because we already got a call coming in here. I will get into something that Governor Ron DeSantis said to a reporter, and I love it when somebody just blows a reporter away with just facts. We'll get into that in just a minute. But first, Greg and Laramie on Word Salad. Hello, Greg.
Hey, Glenn. How you doing?
Life is grand. What's going on?
It has been grand. I've been watching experimental planes take off in the Columbia River this week. It's
neat.
Interesting.
I would love to have seen that.
Yeah, some guy brought in a folding plane. I wondered whether he had pontoons on. I saw him take off. It's a little tough for him. Anyway.
Right.
I heard you've been talking about word salad for like the last 9 days or so, whatever, and I always wonder why you don't talk about Trump the insurrection. I mean, I think Colorado was right. He should have never been on the ballot.
Well, actually...
I just find it weird that you're comparing word salad to a guy that tried to steal our republic.
Okay, because he didn't. No, Greg, I can answer the question. Because he didn't. Next.
Well, you're denying what you see with your own eyes.
No, I'm not denying what... I'm telling you what I saw with my own eyes.
Read the word. He organized.
No, he didn't.
He is a corrupt...
No. Actually,
should never be
did you ever watch the entire speech that he gave to the people in front of the Capitol, the whole thing?
Glenn, I was there. It's my birthday. I watched him foment insurrection.
Okay,
no. Insurrection.
No, he didn't.
To a good
okay, Greg, look, we have gone through this over and over again. You keep saying he did. I keep saying he didn't. So we're not going to agree on that. What else you got?
Well, you always care about the Republic, and you don't need to. If you compare somebody,
I do care about the Republic, but again, that just brings Greg. That just brings us right back to where we started from. You think he created an insurrection? I know that he didn't. We're not going to agree. So what else you got?
Well, the facts prove that you're incorrect.
Well, the facts prove that you're... No, the facts prove you're incorrect.
Do you ever
Greg,
talk about the filing Jack Smith made?
Yes, we've already done all of this, Greg. And you and I disagree on it. And we're not... And apparently, Greg, we're not going to change each other's minds. So what else you got?
Well, then you're voting for the end of the Republic.
Well, so are you, though. If you're going to vote for Harris, you're voting for the end of the Republic. Okay, have a good day, Greg. Bye. Come back when you got something different to talk about. The reason I'm not going to engage is because we're just going round and round. We're just going round and round on that one. We've already had this conversation, so I'm not going to go round and round. Okay? It's just not worth it. All right, let's get back to, by the way, 888-97-WOODS is the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. And you can do what Greg just did. He just interrupted me. The only reason I let him go, because usually I let Greg go on for quite a while, is because, again, we've already talked about this. He and I are not going to agree. So what's the point of going round and round? All right, next up, let's go to Florida. As you know, and people do mention this to me because I know I talk about it a lot. I'm sorry. Where I grew up, I'm very proud of, and it has you would not believe, the warm spot in my heart, I mean, really boils over. The islands I grew up on. I love my childhood on Sanibel and Captiva Islands. So when hurricanes hit Florida, I pay attention because I've been through them. I know what they do. Now, right away, every time a hurricane does hit any Gulf area, somebody has to say, well, climate change. Hurricanes have been hitting coastlines literally for billions of years. No, they're not getting worse. No, we're not having more. But let's go to someone else. Instead of listening to me, you've heard me. We're in Florida right after this hurricane just slammed right into around the Tampa Bay area. And here's Governor DeSantis giving a press conference. And, of course, some reporter has to call up because this particular hurricane had a lot of tornadoes in it. And, of course, the reporter has to ask about climate change. Here's how DeSantis answered.
Global warming. Tornadoes? Yeah, to increase the tornadoes. I think you could go back and find tornadoes for all of human history for sure. And especially, Florida, how does this storm rate in kind of the history of storms? I think it hit with a barometric pressure of, about 950 millibars when it hit, which I think if you go back to 1851, there's probably been 27 hurricanes that have had lower so the lower the barometric pressure, the stronger it is. I think there have been about 27 hurricanes that have had lower barometric pressure on landfall than Milton did. And of those, 17 occurred, I think, prior to 1960. And the most powerful hurricane on record since the 1850s in the state of Florida occurred in the 1930s, the Labor Day hurricane. Barometric pressure on that was 892 millibars. It totally wiped out the Keys. We've never seen anything like it, and that remains head and shoulders above any powerful hurricane that we've ever had in the state of Florida. The most deadly hurricane we've ever had was in 1928. The Okeechobee hurricane killed over 4,000 people. Fortunately, we aren't going to have anything close to that on this hurricane. But even ones like Ian, where you had, wasn't even close to that. So, I just think people should put this in perspective. They try to take different things that happen with tropical weather and act like it's something. There's nothing new under the sun. This is something that the state has dealt with for its entire history, and it's something that we'll continue to deal with. I think what's changed is we've got 23 million people. A storm that hits is likely to hit more people and property than it would have 100 years ago. And
so he goes on like that. You get the idea. That's someone who actually has a control of history and facts and is able to explain it in a way where the reporter just throws out global warming, right? Okay, so this is funny. Sometimes Miss Mary, I'm going to pick on you, will go ahead and take a caller's information and put them up on the screen for me. But then she forgets who was calling. So this one says, Frank, maybe? Who's on the phone? if that person is still on the phone.
Jim's on the phone.
Oh, Jim's on the phone. Okay. She somehow she got Frank out of that. Okay. Anyway, Jim, what you have for me?
When you were talking about the Nobel Peace Prize, between high school and college, I worked for the Buffalo News. That's New York.
Right.
And I got to be friends with an editorial cartoonist, and he won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Right.
And if you look up the thinker, look up his name, you'll see the thinker. And that's the battle between unions and big business. And
okay.
I get to be good friends with him. If I'd have known he had a ranch in Montana, I would have begged him to take me along on vacation.
Yeah. Okay. Now, sometimes there are Nobel Peace Prize or Nobel Prize winners in general who, like these three guys that just came up and won it, who really did something great and really do deserve it. But then there's other times they give that prize out, and I look at it and I think, what are you doing? You're devaluing the prize by, like when they gave it to Obama, 11 days into Obama being in office, telling him he needs to live up to it. I mean, that devalues what should be a great prize.
I agree with that. He won a lot of other prizes, anyway, he not prizes, but a lot of accolades, and he was just a fantastic person.
All right.
And I enjoyed visiting with him, and sometimes I wasn't supposed to be because I was supposed to be down in editorial.
Right.
But he was a great man, in my opinion. And I really enjoyed his company and his friendship.
All right. I appreciate you calling in this morning. Thank you. And Miss Mary is now trying to make excuses. It's hard to talk to people just once and remember their names. I know. Look, Mary, you gave me a key code number to get into a door here in the building, and I walked away and immediately forgot it. She said the thinker was a winning editorial 1958 Pulitzer Prize award by Bruce Shanks of the Buffalo, New York Evening News. The cartoon was published August 10, 1957, depicted the dilemma of union membership when faced with racketeering and leaders in labor unions. So, yeah, that was a Pulitzer Prize winning thing. 846, Wake Up Wyoming.
Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Join the conversation at 888-97-WOODS.
Go to the icebox. Frank Gambino is waiting by. So, Frank, I went and did the corn maze in...
just west of town.
West of town, yeah. Well,
did you get lost?
No. Okay. There was one time I did take a path that took me right back to where I started from, and I thought, okay, don't do that again. Other than that, no, I found it actually pretty easy to do.
Okay.
Yeah, now, having said that, for those who don't know, you go out toward the airport in Natrona County, and I have directions because I did a post on this, Frank, with pictures and all that kind of stuff, including some drone shots of the whole thing.
Who's got a drone?
There are people out there having people come from all over.
Really?
Well, I mean, Montana. I met people from Montana at the corn. And there's all sorts of things to do for kids. It's not just a corn maze.
Okay.
There's loads of things to do, front and back of the maze. What I like, though, is as you go to walk into the maze, there's a sign that says just a few rules. No alcohol.
Well, you'll certainly get lost after a few dumdies.
Here's the thing. Rule applies to visitors age 98 and younger. So if you're 99...
you can go ahead and drink.
Go right ahead, yeah, okay. Stay on pass or you will get nabbed by the corn cops. I didn't meet any corn cops. I didn't find any dead bodies. I saw a few
Were they hiding in the stalks over there?
No littering, or you will be carted off with the trash.
Oh.
Yeah. No throwing corn.
There'll be no corn, no corn fights, no cornhole games, no nothing. Yeah.
Do not grab a stalk of corn and throw it at somebody, even if it's your sister. But hang on, I got more, Frank.
All right, even high school football from over the weekend in 4A, and the Toronto won the Oil Bowl in Casper for the 8th straight time on Friday night, 27-0 over Keller Walsh. NC is 4-3, and KW is 3-4. Cheyenne East 6-1 after a 23-15 win over Cheyenne Central. That's 9 straight wins by East in the series. series, and Central is 1-6. Laramie at 2-5 picked up a win they desperately needed, beating Cheyenne South 62-6. South is winless on the year and have not been competitive in a game this season. Sheridan won their 38th game in a row, drilling Rock Springs in Casper 49-12. So Sheridan is 7-0 and will host 7-0 Campbell County on Friday as the Camels beat Thunder Basin and Gillette 35-7. In 2A, Bighorn crushed Glenrock 54-14. Burns big over Upton Sundance 48-18. In 1A 9-man, Pine Bluff smothered Saratoga 63-7. And 1A 6-man, Riverside over Midwest 63-29. Casper Christian lost to Farson Eden 52-18. And KC defeated Matisse 54-12. In college football from over the weekend, the Wyoming Cowboys let one slip away, losing to San Diego State and Laramie 27-24 to drop to 1-1 in Mountain West Conference play and a paltry 1-5 overall. Injuries have played a part in this decline, but this next man up scenario doesn't really add up, because the results have not been very good when you don't have your first stringers in there. It was clearly evident on defense. Quarterback Evan Swoboda obviously is having a bad year. 12 of 31 with 2 interceptions. One of them was returned for a touchdown. It was a bad pass with bad results, just like the Arizona State game. Swoboda, however, had a 51-yard touchdown run, but the overall production is sorely lacking. And the coaching staff is having a bad year, too, in a number of areas, and maybe even time management. San Diego State rallied from 7 down in the fourth quarter to get to 2-0 in league play and 3-3 overall. Cowboys will be at San Jose State on Saturday. In the NFL, the Denver Broncos are 3-3 after losing at home to the Los Angeles Chargers yesterday, 23-16. Broncos were just flat out bad on offense in the first half, but made a game of it in the fourth quarter with 16 points. Quarterback Bo Nix was 19 of 33 for 216 yards, a couple of touchdown passes, and 1 interception. Bronco defense was shorthanded in the secondary as Patrick Surtain suffered a concussion on the very first defensive play. Denver's 3-3 on the year. They'll be at New Orleans on Thursday. In Major League Baseball, the National League Championship Series is underway, and the Los Angeles Dodgers have a 1-0 lead over the New York Mets with a 9-0 win yesterday. Cheyenne native Brandon Nimmo, the Mets left fielder, went 0 for 3 at the plate in that game. That's it in sports.
Last few rules of the corn maze.
Okay, I'm ready.
You, Frank. Okay, speed limit 2 miles an hour, no running. Cigarettes and corn stalks are a bad combination.
Indeed.
So no smoking. And no bad, you're going to love the pun here, no bad language. Our corn has very tender ears.
Do you need clothes to go in the corn maze?
I would, you know something? If you want to get naked and get lost in a corn maze, Frank, go ahead. It's Wyoming.
El Paso.
Yeah. Because remember my rule about getting naked. Everybody who likes to get naked in public is nobody that you want to see naked. Ever. Let's Wake Up Wyoming. Six the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. It's a Monday, so rinse and repeat.
Today's show is sponsored by ice. It's water, but in a solid state. Caution. It may fall from the sky.
And some of that in the form of snow. In fact, quite a bit of it might actually fall on some of the biggest fires Wyoming has by the time we get to, let's say, Thursday, Friday, which is good news.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave.
In case you didn't know, today's Columbus Day. Some are trying to pass it off as Indigenous Person Days. And St. John's, New York's largest Catholic university, just gone woke and no longer refers to Monday as Christopher Columbus Day, but now calls it Indigenous People Day. Mike in Laramie. Morning, Mike.
Good morning, Glenn. I've got maybe
I'd like to upset the woke crowd about Columbus Day, if I may.
Sure, go for it.
Remember that Columbus, an Italian, was hired by Ferdinand and Isabella, Hispanics, to do this journey, and that it was the Hispanics who began the colonization and exploitation of the New World, followed closely by the Portuguese, and that it was the Hispanics who introduced black slavery to the New World and had black slaves over 100 years before the first slaves arrived in Jamestown in 1619.
Right.
So if you're going to start complaining about, European exploitation, remember, it started with the Hispanics.
Right, and let's go further than that. There was already black-on-black slavery in Africa, which continues to this day. And when we go to North America and South America, not only did they have genocide, but even in North America, they had slavery of women and children. In South America, flat-out slavery, but also genocide and human sacrifice as well. So when people try to point the finger, I'd like to know who's innocent here.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody's innocent.
No,
and then the Europeans brought their wars over here, with Europeans fighting Europeans, like the French and Indian wars against the British.
Yeah.
So nobody is clean in this, but I just thought, it might be, remember, it was the Hispanics who started the whole thing.
Okay.
I got something bit for you on Bugs Bunny.
Okay.
Did you know you can get Bugs Bunny DVDs from Warner Brothers?
No.
You can. Go to the Warner Brothers website, or sometimes you can find them at Walmart.
Okay.
I've got about a half a dozen.
Wow.
And I got one Friday for $5. I got 6 hours of Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and all the other crowd.
I might have to go through that again, because when I was a kid, I got up, I had my bowl of cereal in front of the television Saturday morning, and it was Bugs all the way.
It was Bugs, these DVDs, it's the whole crowd.
Okay.
And this one I got has got the classics, Bugs Bunny and the Barber of Seville.
Oh, that was a great
all of
one.
the Taz cartoons and all of the Martian, Marvin the Martian.
See, when you do like the Barber of Seville, that was high-end humor, too. They used classical music, things like that. That was great stuff.
Oh, yeah, they had the one on there, too, with Valkyrie, where Elmer Fudd's running around singing Kill the Wabbit.
Oh, yeah. I got to go back and watch some of that stuff. It's been a few years.
Yeah, but you can't get DVDs if you want to go back and be nostalgic for your childhood.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Yeah, he does that because Bugs Bunny's my childhood hero. Now, on that note, what he was talking about with Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day. So I started the morning at 6 o'clock with this little song here.
In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
So far, so good.
It was a courageous thing to do.
Yes, it was.
Someone was already here.
Oh, so what?
In 1492,
see, they're trying to make a point here, but somebody was already here. So?
But someone was already here. The Inuit and Cherokee, the Aztec and
yes, all of these groups were already here. So?
Columbus sailed across the sea, but someone was already here.
So what if they were already here?
So tell me who discovered what. Thought he was in a different spot. Columbus was lost, but courage.
Okay, so she goes on to sing that, well, Columbus was lost. Who actually discovered what? All right. Missing the entire point of what happened. Let's go back. And I'll cover just a little bit of what I was talking about earlier this morning. So we had back now, we'll go way back to, it was North and South America, and there were, peoples living there. South America was much more brutal than North America, but still, North America, they had genocide. I keep hearing they were at one in harmony with nature. No, they weren't. Honestly, and they didn't understand the idea of property rights. And why did they fight over property all the time? Most people did not live in a teepee. They had towns and cities with walls around them. They fought wars, and the stronger tribes would completely wipe out the weaker tribes. So, who's innocent here? And in North America, they kept slaves. Women and children were kept as slaves. After a brutal conquest, this would happen. Then in South America, it was even worse, including human sacrifice. So, it was really bad. When Europeans came over to the Americas, Did they discover America? Well, from their point of view, yeah. Yes, I know. The Vikings were here first. I get that. But it was not common knowledge. The vast majority of Europe had no idea that these continents existed. None. So was it discovered? From the Europeans' point of view, yes, they discovered something they didn't know before. And it was also a discovery from the point of view of the people who already lived in North and South America, because they didn't know that Europe existed. So was it a discovery? From that point, yes, from that point of view, it was. And so this whole idea, he didn't discover anything, there were already people here. You missed the point. Neither knew that the other was here. Okay, so when white people from Europe first started coming over, remember, Europeans had conflicts, Asian countries had conflicts, and so there were conflicts in North and South America. Human beings can behave really badly. The only thing that changed was when white Europeans came to America, that's just adding a new tribe to the mix. And the Europeans ended up becoming the tribe that beat all other tribes. Okay, so who was the good guy? Who was the bad guy? Who was the victim here? I can't find any. Everybody was behaving poorly, as humans often do. Everybody was behaving poorly. So this whole idea that we can't call it Columbus, we need to call it indigenous people because of the atrocity. What about the atrocities they committed on each other before we got here? And I always love doing this thought experiment. I love doing this. Think about it for a minute. What would have happened if North and South America had been more technologically advanced than Europe, and they had discovered Europe? Well, there would have been an invasion and mass genocide and slavery and so on. The same thing would have happened still. All of the same things. As the tribes of America came over to Europe, would have sailed on over to Europe and just conquered it. So, sorry, there's no victims here. Everybody's equally behaving poorly. RH in Wiggins, Colorado. Glenn, sadly, the Warner Brothers DVDs are edited and cut up, are they? Butchered with wokeness. Episodes are missing tons of original moments. I would have to go and find... I bet you I can find original stuff if I go searching for it. 9:15, Wake Up Wyoming.
Friday. You asked for an expert. We didn't have the budget for that. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Weekdays 6 to 10 a.m. and 24/7 on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
9:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Hang on a second here. I'm typing in because, I got started on the topic of Bugs Bunny cartoons. He is my childhood hero. So I'm going to type in unedited. Of course, I misspell unedited. Bugs Bunny. Okay. This is what I'm looking for, is unedited Bugs Bunny cartoons. And, yeah, you can go back to ones, even from the 1930s. You got to search around for these, but there are Looney Tunes sets and Bugs Bunny cartoons when he looked really different than we remember him when we were kids, because the original drawing of Bugs Bunny looked completely different. All right, on to something else. And by the way, 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. 70% of bus riders in Washington, D.C. don't bother to pay the fare. Now, if you were the mayor of Washington, D.C., and 70% of the people who hopped on the city bus just didn't pay the fare, think about what would you do? Okay. Story here says, when puzzling over how to address the fact that 70% of your customers are not paying for your service, you might think, hey, I got an idea. How about we make the 70% who aren't paying, pay? Well, it's okay. You're not a public transit executive, so you neither have the sophistication or anything else proper. You can't assess. I mean, who are you? There's a much simpler solution. Make those who aren't riding pay instead. Remember, this is Washington, D.C. Let's back up, because, yes, you heard me correctly, but let's do it again. 70% of the customers on buses in Washington, D.C. don't pay the fare. So instead of making them pay, they will get people who don't ride the bus to pay. Transit agency is proposing a new funding model where jurisdictions will get credit for paid riderships while subsidizing unpaid riders, the thieves. Let's break it down a couple of ways. Subsidizing is another way of saying that you're going to pay for a service that you don't use. Unpaid riders is another way of saying thieves. Put those two together. People who don't ride will end up paying for the thieves who do. Before we go any further, it might help to understand that the organization we're dealing with is the Washington Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, WMATA. WMATA. You pronounce it the way you want. It is a regional transportation system that encompasses various jurisdictions, including Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia, and nearby Maryland counties. While each of these incorporation areas have their own transit as well, there's a formula that they have for sort of sharing that one particular service, which I can't even pronounce the acronym. Of course, it's been subsidized to one extent or another over time anyway, but okay. So this would further subsidize it. Under the plan, expected to be introduced at Metro Board meeting on Thursday of this week, contributions from each jurisdiction will be reduced based on the amount that the pay riders contribute. But then, of course, we got to get those people. We got to tax the people who have never ridden it to pay for it. This wouldn't it be simple? See, this is why I wrote a book called The Uncomplicated Life. Wouldn't it be much better just to find a simpler solution? Here's what I would do. First off, if anyone, and I know this puts a bit of a burden on the bus driver, but when somebody gets on the bus, they have to stop and pay. If they don't pay, then the bus is not going anywhere until they either, one, pay, or two, get off. And if I have to call the police to kick them off, I will. If the buses end up late because people are sitting in their seats and not paying and we're waiting for the police to arrive, so be it. You're going to pay or you're going to get off. Now, if this continues, as mayor of the town, I will propose discontinuing the bus service. If you folks can't understand that you need to pay for your ride, then you're not going to have a bus service at all. So either A, everybody figures out that they have to pay, or B, we're not going to have buses anymore. And make that a citywide announcement so everybody understands it. Now, is this hard to figure out? No, of course not. It also puts people in a better frame of mind as far as, what is moral. Go ahead and call the people who are not paying for the rides. Call them thieves. I'm sure somebody will say that's racist, whatever they want to call it. If you're not paying for your bus ride, you're a thief. And the thieves that are riding for free are about to cause the cancellation of the service. So you folks out there, you figure this out. You figure out what you want to do. And as if I were mayor of the town, I would at some point just say, that's it. We're canceling the bus service. We're not going to just go. Look, we're trying to have less emissions to save the planet anyway. So let's just go ahead and cancel the bus service. There, that's better, right there. Now we don't have to deal with those emissions. How about that? 942, Wake Up Wyoming.
Where Wyoming comes to talk. This is Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Be part of the show at 888-97-WOODS.
Coming up on 9:48 is Wake Up Wyoming, and off we go to the icebox where Frank Gambino is waiting by. Okay, Frank, I came across something that had me thinking a little while ago. I have one of these at home, an old-fashioned black, really heavy rotary phone.
Oh, okay, yeah. We have one here somewhere in the station, too.
Sure, yeah. And so, in fact, I know the one that we have in the station actually doesn't even have a dial on it.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's like it's like the hotline.
Yes, I think it's in Colby's office right now.
Do you remember when you used to drop those rotary phones and the bell would kind of like
ding,
rattle, ding?
Yeah, and those are the days.
Leave the phone alone.
When you called someone, you knew exactly where they were.
Well, yeah, they're either in their kitchen.
Yes.
or
in the living room somewhere. Nobody was sitting on the toilet back then. It didn't happen,
But, and the other thing, too, is that, you had so many phones in the house.
Yes,
it rang in like 7 different rooms. You had 7 different phones. We had a beige one in the kitchen. Wow. We had a green one in the basement, and then a white one in the living room upstairs.
So I remember my parents got an extra long cord for the one in the kitchen. Yeah. And I felt so free being able to walk all around the kitchen on the phone with this long cord. So now let's think about what's going on in your brain now. There was a time that you had a bunch of phone numbers memorized.
Probably 4 at the most.
Yes. Okay, so what is that part of your brain that memorized the phone numbers? What's it doing right now?
Well, it's trying to associate because the numbers that I remember were close to mine.
Yes.
Like my first 3 digits were 589.
Right.
Well, I had other friends who also was 589. I just had to remember what mine was and what theirs was.
The only phone number I remember is someone that I've actually never called. It's just, I don't remember the guy's name. He just told me his phone number, and it's easy to remember. It was 432 nothing 0000.
Aha.
That's, other than that, I don't remember. So I wonder, now that there's this spot in my brain which used to hold phone numbers and it's not doing anything anymore, what's going on in that spot in my brain?
Well, here's the thing is like, years ago, commercial jingles always had these great little one-liners with their phone number.
Yeah.
588-2300 Empire.
See, there you go. Yeah. Amazing how they get stuck in there.
Yeah, see? So your stuckness is now soft and gooey, and it's not absorbing proper information like remembering people's phone numbers.
That's okay. See,
you couldn't tell me one phone number in your phone today off the top of your head.
I bet you use that part of the brain to store extra sports statistics.
Yeah, well, if you can remember them. I mean, you can store them. Can you access them?
There's the thing. Can you access those things? Because there were some number. In fact, it wasn't until recently that I started to remember my own phone number. When someone would ask me...
now don't ask me. That was the night we have to think about mine.
Yeah, when someone asked me what my phone number was, I would have to go look it up in my phone. And the answer for why is because, Frank, I don't call myself, so why would I know that?
Well, that's very true. All right, college football. The Wyoming Cowboys are now 1-1 in Mountain West Conference play and 1-5 overall after losing to San Diego State in Laramie, 27-24 on Saturday. Part of the deal, and there's a whole bunch here, but injuries have played a part in this decline. So the next man up scenario is not quite working with the Cowboys because when you put your first stringers in, you can see the difference between them and the second stringers. It was clearly evident on defense. Quarterback Evan Swoboda obviously is having a rough year. 12 of 31 with 2 interceptions. One of them returned for a touchdown. It was a bad pass, bad results. It was like watching the Arizona State game all over again. Swoboda also had a 51-yard touchdown run, but his overall production is sorely lacking. And the coaching staff, they're having a rough year, too, in a number of areas. San Diego State did rally from 7 down in the fourth quarter to get to 2-0 in league play, 3-3 overall. Cowboys will be at San Jose State, on Saturday. Wyoming High School football from over the weekend in 4A. Natrona wins the Oil Bowl for the 8th straight year over Kelly Walsh, winning 27-0. NC is 4-3 and KW is 3-4. Cheyenne East is 6-1 after a 23-15 win over Cheyenne Central. That's 9 straight wins by East in that series, and Central is 1-6. Laramie 2-5 on the year, picking up a win they desperately needed, beating Cheyenne South 62-6. South is winless on the season and have not been competitive in any game this season. Sheridan won their 38th consecutive game, drilling Rock Springs in Casper 49-12. Sheridan is 7-0. They will host 7-0 Campbell County on Friday as the Camels beat Thunder Basin in Gillette 35-7. Over to 2A, Bighorn crushed Glen Rock 54-14. Glen Rock still winless on the year. Burns over Upton Sundance 48-18. And 1A 9-man Pine Bluffs remained undefeated, smothering Saratoga 63-7. And 1A 6-man Riverside over Midwest 63-29. Casper Christian lost to Farson 52-18. And KC a winner over Matitsi 54-12. And in the National Football League, the Denver Broncos are 3-3 after losing to the LA Chargers in Denver yesterday 23-16. Broncos were just awful on offense in the first half, but made a game of it in the fourth quarter with 16 points. Quarterback Bo Nix, 19 of 33 for 216 yards, 2 touchdown passes, and 1 interception. Bronco defense was shorthanded in the secondary as Patrick Surtain suffered a concussion on the first defensive play. So Denver's 3 up and 3 down, and they will be playing on Thursday night on the road against the New Orleans Saints.
So Miss Mary says she has 3 phone numbers memorized.
Okay.
One is her childhood phone number, which she can't use anymore, but it's still in her head.
I have that one too, yes.
Yeah, okay. Her mother's cell phone number, which is important. Got to admit, that's important. Okay. And believe it or not, Frank, your phone number for when she calls you for sports. Unfortunately, though, I pointed out to her, but she always forgets to call you. I have to remind her.
Yeah.
And she says the irony is not lost on me.
Oh, no. I'm last on the list, as usual.
At least you're on the list.
Well, I'm on the list,
But she just never remembers to call you. I have to tell her, call Frank.
And then sometimes I call her, like, hello, okay.
That's right, I forgot. That's okay, because now I can't, look, Mary was nice enough to give me a number, not a phone number, a passcode number. And when I walked out of the room, I immediately forgot it.
Oh, it's not...
That's okay, because a caller will call this program to talk to me on air, and they tell her their name.
Right.
And she puts the phone on hold and goes to type it up and forgot what they just said.
So, makes 2 of us.
We have